Hello, BookTube. Welcome to another non-fiction review. This is my third attempt to record this particular review, and that's not due to any technical issues. It's just that I could not find the best way to describe this unusual little book. Today's book is How Proust Can Change Your Life. Strange title, and that's what I thought when I was in a secondhand bookshop looking around for something new to buy. This title caught my eye, but it did two things. It did two contradictory things. First of all, it said how something can change your life, and that whole title just said self-help. This is a self-help book. My personal experience, and I think a lot of the BookTube reactions I've watched anyway, suggest that we're not crazy about self-help books. I'm not crazy about them. But then it mentioned Proust, of all people, and that's what made me think, okay, what is really going on here? This can't just be a self-help book. Something else must be happening, and I needed to grasp it. And the quirky cover illustration also thought, this book has a sense of humor. This book is probably at least smiling at itself, if not laughing at itself. And I think the best way to get a sense of what on earth is this little book about would be just to read you the opening paragraph, which is what I did when I was deciding whether I was going to buy it. There are few things humans are more dedicated to than unhappiness. Had we been placed on earth by a malign creator for the exclusive purpose of suffering, we would have good reason to congratulate ourselves on our enthusiastic response to the task. Reasons to be inconsolable abound. The frailty of our bodies, the fickleness of love, the insincerities of social life, the compromises of friendship, the deadening effects of habit. In the face of such persistent ills, we might naturally expect that no event would be awaited with greater anticipation than the moment of our own extinction. And that's what made me buy the book. Was that bizarre paragraph. I thought, wait a minute, no self-help book is going to start off saying, I think we probably are better at being unhappy than happy, and really we should probably just look forward to our own deaths. I thought, what? Excuse me? Just a moment. And then I knew that I had to buy it. That, and the book had been so well read that my copy was missing its back cover. As you see, there's just the acknowledgements page. But that's what got me to make my decision. So we return to our statistics here. The book came out in 1997. It's very short, 216 pages, only 214 of those are the text. And mine, of course, as I said, was owned already. Copies online come fairly cheaply, because it is getting to be quite an old book. And of course mine, I'm sure I paid less than £1 because of its condition. But what exactly is this book about? If it's not a self-help book in the usual sense, why does it talk about Proust? Where does Proust come in? Is this some kind of book about Proust's writing, that famous multi-volume novel In Search of Lost Time? What is it actually doing? And I felt in the end that the best way I could describe it was like a book of secular sermons. In the 19th century, these were extremely popular, to buy volumes of sermons that had been written down, being given by very famous clergymen, and you could peruse them at your leisure, and they would be self-improving. They would also provide you with food for thought, aspects about the scriptures or some other sacred text that was important. And in a way, that is what Alain de Botton is doing with this book, except he's using either Proust's writing, In Search of Lost Time, or events from Proust's biography as his text for the day, if you will. And then he takes a topic or a theme. There's 9 chapters and they each cover 9 different themes. And he does what's effectively a secular sermon. He does this not in a philosopher's language, although you'll see he's qualified enough to teach us philosophy, should he so wish, in that academic way. But he chooses not to. He's chosen instead to come to readers that don't have an academic background, who are perhaps intimidated by philosophy, and say, I think we can do philosophy together. Let's try it with some of these little topics that I've pulled together, and they happen to come, or they happen to be inspired by the writing and the life of Marcel Proust. Let's talk about the author. Alain de Botton was born in 1969 in Switzerland, although he was educated in England, first at Dragon School, which is in Oxford, and then at Harrow. And at Cambridge, he studied history. He got a first-class double star. I don't quite know what that means, but it sounds to me as though his work must have been superlative, according to someone's judgment. He went on to get his master's degree in philosophy from King's College, London. And then, oddly enough, he went to Harvard to begin a PhD in French philosophy, which he did not complete, which is odd given the progression of his education. But around that time, that was in the early 90s, he would have written and got published his first book, Essays in Love. And this sold incredibly well. It was a similar type of book. It was short essays on philosophical topics, but presented in such a way that simply an ordinary but very good reader could pick up the ideas and work with them. We'll take a quick look at the structure. So you will see it's a very simple book. There's no introduction. There's just 9 chapters, 24 pages per chapter. Don't be too intimidated by that 24 pages, even though the font is, I'd say, 11 point, so it is a little on the smaller side. There's wide margins all around the page, double spaces between each paragraph, and there's a lot of illustrations that break up the text, 24 in all, and they get quite large. I'll just show you one here to camera. Right, not a lot of reading on that page. So it just shows that the book is, I think that gives you an idea too, just how approachable the book is, how much it is aimed at a reader who's busy, who doesn't have a lot of time, and yet thinks, yes, I wouldn't mind some helpful ideas if somebody has got some and can give them to me in a way that I can take them in easily. And this is the parcel that you get from this particular book. And to show it more, I think I still have to read something longer from the book just to give you a better idea. So let's do that. This comes from chapter 7 of the book, page 138 in the paperback edition, and it's on the subject of friendship. Proust once compared friendship to reading because both activities involved communion with others, but added that reading had a key advantage. In reading, friendship is suddenly brought back to its original purity. There is no false amiability with books. If we spend the evening with these friends, it is because we genuinely want to. Whereas in life, we are often led to have dinner because we fear for the future of a valued friendship were we to decline the invitation. A hypocritical meal forced upon us by an awareness of our friends' unwarranted yet unavoidable susceptibility. How much more honest we can be with books. There, at least, we can turn to them when we want and look bored or cut short a dialogue as soon as necessary. How are we to respond to the level of insincerity apparently required in every friendship? How are we to respond to the two habitually conflicting projects carried on under the single umbrella of friendship? A project to secure affection and a project to express ourselves honestly. It was because Proust was both unusually honest and unusually affectionate that he drove the joint project to breaking point and came up with his distinctive approach to friendship, which was to judge that the pursuit of affection and the pursuit of truth were fundamentally, rather than occasionally, incompatible. I hope that gives you an idea of how approachable the text is and how interesting and maybe counterintuitive some of the points that are made in the book are. That's what I found fascinating about this book, and the reason why this is a reread for me. This is my second time to go through the text, and I'm glad that I did. I would keep this book and I would read it again. I did have a chapter summary table all written up, and I was going to go through with you chapter by chapter what each one covers as a topic. I may do a couple. One that I'd like to zero in on is because the topic is reading. The chapter is chapter 2, and it's titled How to Read for Yourself. And you think, well, who else do I read for? But the interesting thing that was covered was that Botton acknowledged that the one reason that we probably all read to some extent is for the escapism that a book gives. Even if it's not, I'm not talking about necessarily a plot-driven mystery in terms of escapism or a fantasy where you're transported into a different world, but the very act of opening any book is to take your mind out of your present surroundings and you are in the book. And I think most people find that's a benefit of reading. What he wanted to talk about in this chapter is additional benefits that maybe we've never thought about or articulated, but as soon as he said them, I thought, oh, yes, he's right. He's right. So let's talk about these. He refers to them, he gives them a name, and he uses, again, a section of Proust's Remembrance of Things Past, where Proust was talking about someone that he knew in Paris called the Marquis de Lau. And he went into an art gallery, looked at a painting, and found a striking resemblance between the person in the painting and the Marquis de Lau. And on the basis of this, he began to think about what we'd get from books. What is it that is mirrored back to us in books? What moment of recognition do we have? And he came up with 4. So these are his 4 Marquis de Lau phenomena, or he also just calls them MLP. Every self-help book has to have a good acronym, I guess. And he broke down and went ahead with it here. Point 1 in this benefit of reading is that reading helps us to recognize what we have in common with people who seem different than us, people who lived centuries ago, to recognize commonalities between ourselves and those we think we differ from greatly, to discover that maybe we don't differ quite as much as we do. That's benefit 1. Benefit 2 is that reading means that we have our own thoughts and emotions echoed by the characters in the book, and therefore we feel validated. We realize, hey, those are valid feelings mine, because here's someone else having them, and we feel less alone. And point 3 is that when we read, sometimes what happens is an idea or an emotion that we have had for a long time or repeatedly is put into words. And although we've experienced this thing, we've never articulated it ourselves, or we never quite knew how to. We didn't even know it was articulable, if that's a word. I hope it is. We didn't even realize it was something that could be articulated until we see it in the book. And that's a great comfort to us, because we realize somebody else must understand that same idea or emotion well enough to be able to put it into the words we couldn't. And point 4 is to draw our attention to something about life which we either were completely ignorant of, or which was all around us and yet we failed to recognize it and to pull it out, such that when we finish the book and we go back out into our ordinary real world, we can't help but see things differently. I'm hoping that, again, this is just whetting the appetite, because my feeling is this is not a self-help book in that sense of the word that we all get a little tired of. I think this book has some unique ideas in a very easy to digest package, and that's why you're getting my enthusiasm about it. And I had so much enthusiasm, in fact, that as I went through each chapter and was creating the summary, I could see how the ideas in every single chapter could be applied to reading. Sometimes Alain de Botton actually did. He actually did bring the ideas into the topic of reading, but other times not. But I could see how it could be applied. Certainly chapter 2, it's obvious that the chapter's about reading. So there we go. But the others as well. So what I've actually done, and this will be a separate video, otherwise this review will get too long, is I'm going to create an original tag called How Proust Can Change Your Reading. And I'm going to use the chapter headings as prompts, and then have a question that leads on from each prompt. And you'll get the idea, because I will do the tag later this week, and then you'll get the chance to pick it up. I'll tag some people, and we'll see if we can get it going. And it will show that just how approachable the book and the book's ideas are. If I could quickly, me, a person who doesn't really like philosophy, I do, and yet I've never been able to get my head round it, reading it as it tends to come in that more academic, vocabulary heavy form. Alain de Botton was immediately approachable. I could take something away from his books that I hadn't been able to take away from other philosophy, and I found that really satisfying. And that's the review done. I'll just leave 2 links in the description box. One will be to Alain de Botton's website, because he's authored 14 books, and they're all of a very similar sort. He takes a topic and uses philosophy to bring new ideas to that topic, but present them in the kind of language that you've just heard me read in the extracts. And if you still are not sure and you'd like a little bit more information, Alain de Botton presents a number of short videos on the School of Life YouTube channel. So I've linked to that as well. So you can go watch him for 13, 15 minutes presenting on a topic. I think there you'll see too, his aim is to be clear and to appeal to the broadest possible audience, bringing them ideas that he takes out from his philosophy and history education. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys, and thanks for your patience while I got this video just the way I wanted it. I wanted to do this book justice because it's been so helpful for me. What you're going to see next, well, I'm doing a load of filming today, literally back-to-back filming. So if you see me in the same shirt, don't worry, I did wash it. So tune in for that in a few days' time. We've got some tags coming, all kinds of good stuff. And in the meantime, hope you all are enjoying your reading. Take care. Bye-bye.